What are you looking at here today?
Your Boy Scout figures.
The Boy Scouts, the official Scouts. And they are official because it was a collaboration between Kenner and the Boy Scouts of America. You know, back when the Boy Scouts were the Boy Scouts. I know things have changed in time. It was a very different world back then. And they were made by Kenner in 1974 and 1975. It's really just 2 years. It probably didn't sell so well. I know that a lot of these hung around in hobby shops and mom and pop type stores for a long time afterwards. And I guess what Kenner was going for was finding itself somewhere in the middle between the adventure team and Big Jim, and came up with the idea of the Scouts. And it's kind of interesting because they are 1/6 scale, just like the G.I. Joes are roughly 6th scale, the adventure team and the original Fighting Man. And so they scale perfectly with the original Hasbro G.I. Joe figures. So, for example, you got Craig and Dave there are Cub Scouts, and they're adolescents, so they're supposed to be younger than 12, and they're about the size of a 12-year-old in 6th scale. And then, of course, you have Bob and Steve there, and Bob and Steve would be young teenagers. And so the scale works, and I know a lot of people back in the day, and this is how I first stumbled over these in the early 90s, people who were into the original Fighting Man and Adventure Team G.I. Joes who built dioramas would use the Scouts because they scaled, and they would also use a lot of Mark's horses. And when these were released, actually, they coincide, I believe, with the release of Kung Fu Grip from Hasbro. And official, again, Scouts of America. And it says High Adventure. Official Scout High Adventure. Approved by Boy Scouts of America. And you could actually purchase these through scouting catalogs at the time. Now, the original release figures you see down there, and those are the ones that are with the sealed up box. And
oh, the ones down here.
Yeah,
oh, okay,
it's
okay.
just got the two boys saluting, doing the scout salute, and the hand is affixed into a scout salute. So you see this here, and they did come with a little comic inside. A little comic book is in here, and it shows you a picture of some of the adventure sets that would be released on the back. And you had some points here, and a Kenner point, also General Mills. And you often find these with these cut out, because people would send them in for things out of the catalog. And you have Steve, and you have Bob, and then they were re-released in a window box. Here's Steve and Bob again in sort of an action pose, and they just kind of reversed them. They're in the exact same pose, but they're reversed, obviously. I like the window boxes better myself. And then, of course, you've got Dave Cub and Craig Cub, the Cub Scouts, also with photo action poses. And the window boxed versions are more desirable, and they're harder to find than the sealed up ones. These you can typically find.
Did they make the Boy Scouts in the non-window box?
Oh, you mean the Cubs?
Yeah.
No, they didn't do. These are the only examples of the Cub Scouts.
Okay.
And they had all of these adventure kits. They've got these 4, and you might remember these from OK Mike because Ferga copied a lot of these sets. And Ferga, of course, we talked about these in another video, is a company out of Italy that had Kenner licensing, and they changed the figure but used a lot of the equipment and even the packaging.
Okay.
But they made these kits, and they were the Steve Scout the Firefighter. And you've got this thing that actually pumps water. So he's Smoke Jumper Steve Scout here, as you can see. And then it has like a basic thing describing what this does. It's got the little pump, and you could spray water. And now you got Steve the Firefighter. And things like this, or like this Mountain Medic and it's basically just climbing gear. And you got the grappling hook, so he can scale the walls, and it shows you what to do here. And these cards are always messed up. It's very, very difficult to find these on cards that aren't all banged up. Now, the play sets, actually, before I delve off into play sets, this, by the way, is Bill Scout. And Bill Scout was a mail-away figure. That's why he's loose, because all he had was like I believe it was a plain white shipper box. But this is Bill in his casuals, and he's really just kind of a repaint of Steve here. He's like maybe a third of an inch taller. He's just a little bit taller. And I'll show you in particular the hand here. You see that the hand is fixed so that he can do the scout salute.
Hold on, it's getting blurry. Okay, here we go.
Which is why OK Mike is called OK Mike, and we talked about that before. This is OK Mike here. That he, because they used the Kenner Scouts equipment, gave him the Scouts' little hands. And it looks, I guess, to the Italians like OK, which is ridiculous. This, by the way, is a very difficult and expensive figure to get. The mail order ones are very hard to come by. The play sets have a lot of imagination. And again, the dioramas here that they did, like right here, Danger at Snake River. Obviously, poor Bob there had an accident because he's got his foot in a splint. But I love the way they did these dioramas. They weren't going to draw it, but they were going to show you, hey, you can have a little adventure with your figure. And that's how they decided to do the art. And then on the back, it's got a layout of everything that you're going to find in here, including a mini comic explaining what you use the set for.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool. And this is not complete. This is not the whole line, by the way. I'll show you a few more sets here. Here's Lost in the High Country with an original price of $747 at discount. $747, that's pretty expensive for the time period. You see he's got like a little steak he's frying up there. It's got a and a fish. He can fry a fish. He can have bacon and eggs. A little sleeping bag. This is cool. It really is. But this is by no means complete. But they had some great imagination with some of these sets. Here's your Search for the Spanish Galleon. This is a tough one, actually. A tough one to find. And, of course, you've got your treasure chest full of coins. And I believe that's a solid piece, by the way. There's no coins. The little diving equipment, the little inflatable raft, and, of course, a mini comic. And make no mistake, you don't mess with Steve because he is armed. Only knives and equipment like that. But some of these play sets had a great deal of play value, like right here, which 1077, or is that right? 1077 or 1075, something like that. That's expensive. At Key, which was Kmart, Balloon Race to Devil's Canyon, and you have an actual freaking balloon. Look at the scale on that. So you inflate this balloon and you put Steve and his buddies in the basket, and it comes with this pulley system you can string up all across the room. You see he's got it hooked to the door and go in there.
Yeah.
And you pull the lines and you can sail it across the room. Which I think is pretty neat. And then this glider is another really big one. Small box, but that's because it's broken down. And again, you see Kmart. And you see how they have them floating in front of the mountain there. But for scale, when you open it all up and put it together, and you got Steve sitting in the sled, and you can throw this thing. And again, I love the little mini comics. But they went all out with this. And then you have the High Adventure Scout Base, which was on clearance for $386.
Wow, that big old thing.
$386. And again, you can see big heavy box here. tough one to find sealed. This is usually like a box of junk when you find this. This one's never been played with. And here's the kid hauling. Very underrated vintage playset, I think. I think that's an outstanding playset. Even though it's just a simple structure, you can get a lot of play value out of that.
Yeah.
And then here is...
all of this. So you still need the Jeep.
Yeah, I do not have the Jeep. There's a Jeep with the hitch and the little canoe
wagon.
there. Yeah, it's got a canoe. So Pathfinder Trailblazing High Adventure set.
That looks like the only one you're missing.
No, I'm missing 2.
Oh yeah, I see this other thing down
And this
here.
is the Avalanche on Blizzard Ridge, and he's got a ski mobile and a set of skis, and this comes with a figure.
Oh.
There's a second Steve Scout in here that's wearing the snowsuit, the red snowsuit, and the square shoes for the skis. So these are the 2 I'm missing. These are hard to find even loose, and of course, I've got all like unplayed with boxed examples, so that's what I would be gunning for, and you don't find them very often. And again, you see all the points here, all the scout points for their catalog, and even finding these unplayed with, because you often can find sealed examples with these points cut out. Yeah. And to find it intact with the points on it is very difficult. But I mean, look at the size of this. I think this would have been great to be a kid and have this and these figures and just be able to use your imagination with a set like that. It's a fantastic, underrated toy line. And most of it's not that expensive, honestly. I mean, so as you get up there, certain sets, especially sealed like this, can get expensive, or like that Jeep can be expensive sealed, or the ski mobile set. But most of the rest of these, like the carded sets, tough to find them in really good shape. Like I had pointed out, these are usually banged up pretty bad. As you can see, a lot of these are crinkled. But the majority of this isn't going to break the bank, even though a lot of it is tough to find. And again, I think it's just a really highly underrated vintage toy line.